Welcome to the high tunnel. We are in August and that means we are getting close to the end of our growing season. Unfortunately, we are going to walk you guys around today, just quickly outside and inside this high tunnel, and we're also going to be harvesting some cabbage for sauerkraut. The first row is all tomatoes and just a few flowers, sunflowers, and they're doing really good so far. Lots of blooms, lots of things have set. It's kind of hard to see the tomatoes, but they are in there. This first half is pretty much Roma tomatoes. Overall, I switched things up this year. Not super confident that it's going to work out growing different types of tomatoes, and I'm also just trying to manage them differently, so we'll see how that works out. Things are still taking a really long time to ripen, and we only have like a month and a week left or so till our first frost. Some of our earlier tomatoes are starting to turn red already, and these are the indeterminate kind over here, and what I've been doing is going through and just chopping off or pruning the tops and pruning some of the suckers. I probably need to come back in here and do it more because I don't think that something like this, which is just starting to bud, is even going to have a chance to make a tomato. In the middle we have all of our peppers. The hot peppers are a little bit slow, but they are going. Bell peppers look great, and our banana peppers look wonderful. Those have been doing really, really great this year. And back behind me we have a cheese winter squash that we have just let overtake the garden. I actually came in here and pruned it up a little bit because it had too much foliage, and I'll show you guys what the squash look like. So those are one of the squashes, and I've only left a handful on the plant because I really want them to mature. The tomatillos are looking good, and some of the other warm stuff is just doing so-so. Green beans, cucumbers, eggplants. We do have a few eggplants, but the green beans and the cucumbers just are so slow this year, and I'm just thinking for how small they are that we're really not going to get anything off of them. But that's okay. Every year comes with its challenges. Before we head out, I wanted to show this yellow pear tomato who's just gone totally wild. I pruned him yesterday because it does not have that many blooms. And again, with the time issue, I'm just not thinking this is going to be highly productive for us. We may have had too much nitrogen this year, hence lots of foliage and greenness. So we're going to tone that back a little bit next year. So the celery looks awesome. That's turning out really nice this year. I think I really like this Tango variety. It seems to get the biggest, and it also grows much quicker, I think, than Utah. These are all our radishes that are blooming. I'm left them for the bees. They really enjoy them. And then we've got our potatoes just taking over the whole row back there. Not yet at all starting to die back. The fennel is going to seed, but I did start, I kind of staggered them. So I have a few that have been able to be harvested. This is a really nice one. It's going to start to bolt, you can tell. So we're going to eat this for dinner tonight. So even though it wasn't a good year with the radishes, the turnips are doing wonderful. And we've got some really nice sized turnips. These are my favorite. They're purple top. They're really good cooked, and they're also really good raw too. Beets are looking good. Not all of them are huge. In fact, I think that's just because I didn't get in here and thin them. We haven't really been able to get them as big as we used to be able to back in Oregon. Carrots are doing okay too. I was a little lazy when I planted these, or when I sowed them this spring, and they're really close to each other. I should have done rows. I've been coming in here and trying to thin them a little bit as I can. Our onions are surprisingly doing decently well. We're not getting anything huge, but I'm pretty happy with some of these. We're getting some bigger ones. Obviously, we've got some small, medium ones too. Near the end of the row, we have the sets and the bulbs that we planted. Actually, those are shallots. And we've had a lot of rain, so that has naturally just made some of these onions fall over. Some of them are already starting the process of curing, so they're bending and they're gonna seal off. And if we don't get some dry weather, what I'll probably have to do is pull them, or even put some plastic over them so they can cure underneath there. Eric and I like to make little pit stops for these gooseberries. They're super good now that they're finally ripe. Never tried them until this year. They're really like a tangy grape, similar to a grape, really good. So the squash this year was more of a trial, and it actually works really well for being a cooler, wet summer with the plastic that we have on the whole row. And I went through and thinned these. I pruned off extra vines and also cut the tips of the vines because, again, I'm just kind of seriously concerned that they're not going to mature in time. Most of them are only about this big, and we really don't have that much time left for them to mature. So we'll see what we get. It was a good trial year, and I'm glad that they worked out here. They pretty much all were able to pollinate, whereas in the high tunnel I had really bad pollination in there. The zucchini are doing really well this year. We let this one go extra big. We're using it tonight. We're gonna make like a pizza out of it. So they're doing really good this year. Last year, again, in the high tunnel, it just didn't work out that well for us. They got aphids and the pollination wasn't good, but as you can tell, they have a lot of flowers and fruit on them. Surprisingly, the corn is forming ears, and I've just been shaking the little tassels or the tops, and then I've also been trying to like put the actual, you know, pollen on the silks. I don't know if it's gonna work with the rain. It's just not really a good year for corn outside. I was a little bit skeptical about garlic here because they didn't seem like they were growing as fast as they had when we've grown them in the past. But again, we hadn't tried growing them here, and you can see their leaves are starting to turn yellow at the tip and they're starting to die back. And that's an indicator that in a few weeks, they're gonna be ready to harvest. Each of these leaves is like a skin around the cloves or the bulb, and those are gonna, you know, cure, and then they'll be good for harvest. But we kind of need dry weather, so we'll see what's gonna happen with the weather. And I'm gonna dig up a few just around the bulb so you guys can see what they look like. I was really happy with our broccoli and cauliflower harvest this year. These are the last little ones that we're gonna let flower for the bees, but we came in here and got all these, you know, the majority of the side shoots. We harvested all the cauliflower, ate it, blanched it, have it stored away for winter. Very exciting. I have a head that's about to kind of bolt here. This is supposed to be a purple cauliflower, but it usually kind of looks more like a broccoli. So as you can see, our strawberries have put on a lot of growth, but that's just it. They put on a lot of growth. I've been trimming the runners, but they haven't really formed that many berries. They do have berries underneath here, but I'm thinking next year I'm gonna separate them and not put any sort of new manure on there. I'm just gonna be adding bone meal. In fact, I think we already added some again in the fall. So hopefully next year we get more berries. The cabbages are looking great. This is where the majority of them are. I have several of them spread out throughout the garden too. So we're just gonna be harvesting some of the bigger ones today for sauerkraut. We have a few different varieties we're growing. This one's Presto from Territorial, and I really, really like it. It's a little more conical of a shape. I don't know if that's typical, but it's one of the first ones that was ready early. I guess that'll work. Before we head out of the garden, I just wanted to show you the Brussels sprouts. Those are actually doing pretty good this year. I think we're gonna get some good Brussels sprouts off of them. Kale's still going, some of them are flowering, so that's the end for them, but they weren't gonna overwinter anyways. And the peas have just totally taken off, way surpassed their trellis. My absolute favorite, I think it's Eric's too, is this snow pea. It's like a flat pod and it's so good for fresh cooking. There's so many on here. We need to come through, pick them. We're gonna blanch them and we're gonna freeze them for winter. Another variety we have is, I think it's called Sugar Magnolia from Territorial, and it's this purple pod. It's really, really good. It's a little bit later. It climbs to 7 feet and it does dye everything purple. So it's a good one though, besides that. We're gonna feed the chickens and then we're gonna head inside to make the sauerkraut. So we're back in the kitchen. We've got 8 cabbage heads that we're going to be turning into some sauerkraut. I'm going to get these all chopped up, and I just wanted to show you, this is what a split cabbage looks like. It's still totally usable. I just didn't get to it quick enough, and it split probably from being a little bit overripe, and also most likely because of all the rain we've been having. I've already chopped off the stem and taken any outer leaves off that I needed to. So we're going to get started on chopping them. I'm going to be placing all of the cabbage into this 5-gallon bucket we have. And when we're all done, we're going to be adding the salt. So I'm not finicky at all about what size pieces we're turning into the sauerkraut. I just kind of chop as I'm able to, and I decided that I'm going to start salting this behind me. I'm going to do about 1 tablespoon of kosher salt for every cabbage head, and I may do a little bit more. The reason I'm starting that now is because typically you'd massage all the cabbage, but this is a really big batch we're doing, and if I just pour it now and let it sit, it will do the process on its own and I won't have to massage it. And I'm just going to finish this off with another tablespoon or so of salt, kosher salt, and we're doing again one tablespoon per cabbage head. And I don't know if this is going to show on camera, but this is more translucent. So this is already, you know, softer. It's been sitting in that salt for a while. And what will happen is we'll actually get a brine that will cover all of this. And it's essential that it stays underneath that brine while it's fermenting. And now I'm going to do something I don't usually do. I never add water to the mixture because the salt will pull out enough water that we'll have enough of a brine. But because we had some fermented vegetables and it's basically the same juice, same brine, I'm going to add some of this liquid to this to kind of jumpstart it. I'm just going to mix that in. And I'm going to put the lid on for a little bit. I'm probably going to put it on for just half an hour. I need to make sure that we have enough brine to cover that cabbage by the end of today, or else we could definitely get some mold. So it will shrink down and we'll get that liquid over time. I'm just going to keep an eye on it. As far as the lid, I usually just set it on top because you will get some bubbling and some release of gases. But because we have some fruit flies in the house, I'm actually probably going to, you know, cap it down when it's all ready to go. And we're just going to put this aside in our house. It does start fermenting pretty much within a few days, but the longer you let it go, weeks, months, it just gets better. So we're going to probably let it go at least 2 weeks. I wanted to quickly show you guys the brine is now above the cabbage. So I'm going to be putting a plate on top to help keep it submerged. And then we're going to be putting the lid on for good and putting this away. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoy the garden tour, and we will see you next time.